Thank you for joining us and finding God in the world of video games. You know, there are certain things in life that are unwise to mess with because they may upset the natural order of things in a way that you aren't quite prepared for. For example, there's a certain wisdom in ordering waffles when you go to the Waffle House.
Oh, I do like waffles. And I really like Waffle House.
I
really like where this is going so far.
I can tell.
Maybe we should get some Waffle House after
Maybe we
this.
should start eating before we record these.
That too.
But with Waffle House, and waffles, it's kind of their thing. And if you didn't know by the name of the place, they've managed to build an entire house out of this waffle concept, which is no small feat. But if you go to the Waffle House and you order, say, the flat iron steak, well, I'm just going to tell you that things will probably not go well with you in a certain digestive manner.
Why would you order anything other than a waffle?
Well, you'll not only likely be regretting that choice fairly quickly, but you'll also be regretting that they only have one working bathroom typically, which will be in serious use by you for, I don't know, the next several hours. Also, rumor has it that they have the most single-ply toilet paper ever made, and I would not encourage you to find that out the hard way.
I know that.
Third one.
Okay. Every time it goes straight to the toilet with you. Like, literally. Every single
Pride myself
time.
on that.
Like, every
It's hard to
time.
do, and I pull it off.
How do we even have an audience right now?
Well, we actually don't. I mean, I think my dad's watching, but that's about it. But let's get back to the waffles. Hi, Dad. There's nothing wrong with Waffle House, but when I go, I stick to what they're known for. International House of Pancakes. Get me a pancake, or 4 actually. Burger King. Let's go with a burger.
I'm not.
Steak and Shake. By now, you should know the drill. Denny's. Well, actually, I'm not really sure what to do with that.
I like the skillets.
My idea is just keep driving past it, I guess.
I don't think he's ever had the skillets there, so he
No,
doesn't
I'm not
understand.
going to.
Oh.
I'm not a big fan of diarrhea.
Every time I
But back to the point, there's not only a higher level of comfort, but often a large amount of reason why the path less traveled is, less traveled. We know where the other path leads. It's faithful to get us there in a predictable manner. It may not be terribly exciting, but there's the good kind of exciting, and there's the prime rib at Waffle House kind of exciting. And I think you know where I stand on that by now.
You are going somewhere with this, right? Like, did we suddenly get sponsored by Waffle House or something? Do we at least get free waffles? Maybe even free hash browns or something?
No, at least not
Dang.
yet. What? Oh, okay. Well, I tried. No, I'll go somewhere with it. I know it's finding out in the world of video games, not waffles. So here we go. So over the last 8 years, now we'll tie it together, the exclusive rights to publish Star Wars games has belonged to the EA Games Studio, which has yielded some decent Battlefront games, a very solid original story in Jedi Fallen Order, and maybe some less than stellar online efforts. And then we had the recently released Star Wars Squadrons. Wasn't too bad. I mean, nothing that most of us would consider remarkable or incredibly memorable from a storied franchise that has boasted other all-time gaming greats like Knights of the Republic, Jedi Academy, and Rogue Squadron. But, I will give them this. They've at least been consistent with their output.
EA Games isn't necessarily known for taking massive risks with their stable of licenses, but they haven't become one of the largest gaming publishers in the world through losing money. Their Star Wars games may be somewhat predictable, but there is a comfort in their familiarity that ensures that they will deliver the gaming equivalent of, a Subway sandwich maybe. Nothing special, but nothing awful, and nothing you'll really be talking about later either. It simply got you from point A to point B safely and efficiently.
Subway probably not going to sponsor us now after that, but hey, it is
probably
what it is. So now enter Ubisoft. With the expiration date on the exclusivity deal that EA had signed approaching, Ubisoft has announced that they are developing an open-world Star Wars game. Their in-house developer, Massive Games, and if you don't recognize, they're the ones that were responsible for both games in the Division series. A very large open-world setup that has been fairly successful. They've been tapped with giving the world their first taste of a Star Wars game that is made by someone other than EA in a decade. That's fairly significant.
Whether this is timed to release as soon as the clock expires on the EA contract in 2023, or will take longer, who can really say? But one thing is for certain, the way we consume Star Wars games, for better or worse, is about to change in some very unpredictable ways.
That's right. I mean, we can only hope that the force is with Ubisoft as they make some very tough decisions. I mean, you got some big choices to make. Do you chase the current trend and maybe develop something set in the timeline of The Mandalorian? But then you run the risk of being outdated when that game finally arrives. Or do you maybe jump back in time to the old Republic and create something entirely different? But then you risk losing your target audience who's kind of really into what's going on with the Disney Plus shows right now. Do you devote an entire game to figuring out why Kylo Ren throws tantrums like a 2-year-old? I mean, it could be like one of those babysitter games where you're trying to raise them from a child.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
No, Ubisoft has done worse.
It's not wrong. At its heart, the question goes even deeper than continuity versus creativity, or even mere risk versus reward. Even the most basic things can be strangely comforting in their own way, and a paradigm shift of this magnitude threatens that safe, if slightly ordinary, status quo.
Well, sure, we can try out an episode of this new TV show that started this week, or we can just lie in bed and watch another episode of House Hunters and fall asleep while a couple that somehow has a $3 million budget argues about whether they want walk-in closets or an open floor plan that features a balcony for their cat. We may say that we want an exciting new change, and we may believe it when we say those words, but even in those moments, there can be concerns that what we stand to gain may not necessarily be better than what we had. And in our walk with the Lord, things can often be the exact same way.
When Jesus entered the lives of each of his disciples, it was certainly disruptive. These men left their jobs, their families, and everything that they had previously known to follow him everywhere he went. But as the weeks turned into months, the months into years, maybe things began to become a little formulaic.
Well, they would go to a town, Jesus would do some miracles, tell some parables, make some Pharisees want to kill him, and then they would just keep on rolling to the next town. Lather, rinse, repeat. But as Christ began to pivot towards his date with destiny, he took his 3 closest friends to a mountaintop experience that is as difficult to process as any of the events in his earthly ministry. You'll see that in Luke chapter 9, verses 28 through 36, and this is the Transfiguration event. So I'm going to read through a little bit of this for you. So after he went with Peter, James, and John to this mountain, he went to pray. As he was praying, the appearance of his face was altered. His robe became white and glistening, and 2 men talked with him who were Moses and Elijah. You might remember him from a few thousand years ago. And they appeared in glory and spoke of his decease that was about to happen at Jerusalem, the cross and the crucifixion there. Peter and those with him were heavy with sleep, but when they were fully awake, they saw Jesus in his glory and the 2 men who stood with him. And as they were going to part, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah," not knowing what he said. Then a cloud came, overshadowed them, and then the voice came out of the cloud and said, "This is my beloved Son. Hear him." And when the voice ceased, Jesus was found alone, and they were told to be quiet, and they didn't tell anyone what they saw. So let's just deal with this for a minute, okay? We'll go through it step by step. So Jesus goes up to the mountaintop to pray. Cool. He does that all the time. He brings Peter, James, and John with him. Yeah, that checks out. Pretty standard operating procedure for Jesus here. Peter and the guys fall asleep while they're praying. Yep, they seem to do that from time to time, I've noticed. Moses and Elijah, who haven't set foot on the earth in thousands of years, and one of whom is dead, the other ascended up to heaven in a chariot. They're just there chilling, talking, hanging out with Jesus. See, that part right there. What is even happening here? Now, clearly, I'm not the only person that was like, hold on, this is not normal. This definitely messed with Peter, and he starts talking about building some tents or something. I don't even know where he was going to go with that. This must not have originally been on the itinerary for their little prayer brunch.
No. Jesus was just having his usual prayer meeting, brought his friends for support, and some serious stuff went down. Some serious things went down. And they couldn't even begin to comprehend what was even going on. And after that, they went back down to the mountain, and Jesus just went right back to the mission of miracles and, preaching.
He wasn't just talking to Moses and Elijah and stuff, no, now we're just going to keep on going.
Like, what? Wait.
Now, but here's the thing. So regardless of how you understand what happened, the good news is that Peter, James, and John were suddenly and profoundly changed from the inside out because of this incredible life-changing experience, and they instantly matured into the followers of Christ that they were always meant to be. Wait, no, that's not what happened either, at all. You want to know what happened? The very next day, after Peter, James, and John just saw what defies description and like nothing any of us have ever seen, well, it's in Luke. Let's take a look. 9:46 in Luke. Then a dispute arose among them as to which would be the greatest. Well, that's not a very good look. It's certainly not the kind of spiritual growth that one would hope for after such an incredible display of God's power on top of the mountain. You might say, well, that's disappointing, but we don't know for sure it was Peter, James, and John. All right, wait. There's more. If you order now, we'll go to Luke 9:49 through 50, where John answered and said, Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we told him not to because he's not one of us. And Jesus said, don't forbid him. Whoever is not against us is on our side. So it looks like their theology wasn't quite right yet either. Oh, you still want more? Oh, well, did you have a coupon? Good. All right. So shortly after that, same chapter, Luke 9:54 and 55, when his disciples, James and John, these two guys, saw that Jesus was not being received by the Samaritans, they said, Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them as Elijah did? And he turned and rebuked them. And he said, you don't even know what manner of spirit you are of. I didn't come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And they went to another village, because usually when you try to kill everyone in a village, they don't welcome you anymore. Even Motel 6 did not leave the light on.
So let me get this straight. Okay. So Peter, James, and John observe the transfiguration event and then go back down off of the mountain and engage in an argument with the rest of the disciples about who is the best.
That's right.
Okay. And then James and John get on their denominational high horse and try to reject some people and then downright slaughter some others.
That's what it sounds like.
So
it's also what it is.
So they observed this incredible, remarkable, once in a recorded history event in which Jesus, Moses, and Elijah all have a nice little, conference on the top of a mountain type thing going on. And after that, they go right back to being the same old honorary guys that they were before. I mean, that's kind of hard to believe, but maybe not as much as it should be.
Well, that's true. I mean, they're still just humans like me or you. I mean, let's bring it down to earth now. Raise your hand if you've ever gotten into an argument on the way to church, on the way back from church, and then while you're changing out of your church clothes that still smell like church. I mean, who here who has not said something, maybe sent out a text or a tweet or some kind of social media posting, and then not immediately realized that was a completely wrong action to take? How many times have we observed miracles of the Lord in our lives, whether it's healing or provision, and then went right back to our ordinary way of doing things without allowing that event to impact us beyond its obvious implications? I mean, are we really so different than Peter, James, and John? As a society, we dance on the brink of annihilation through so many different means, and yet we continue to fight and argue over the semantics of who is on the left and who is on the right and who is in the wrong, and so on. We hold in our hands the book that brought Jesus and Moses and Elijah all together. And yet for all of our mountaintop experiences, we still come back down without allowing the change to actually penetrate our hearts and our minds in a way that actually impacts us. And I'm not judging anyone here. I can sadly raise my hand to each and every one of these.
The truth about EA and Ubisoft making Star Wars games is that it doesn't matter who's making the game. If they are unwilling to take the risks necessary to make something bold and interesting enough to be worthy of the license, it will just be another game that could have existed in literally any other form with Star Wars stamped on the top of the box.
That's right. And now here are the deep waters for all of us. All of the mountaintop experiences that God will take us on mean nothing if we leave them right there on top of that mountain. He is still the same amazing, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent God who can do beyond all we can think or imagine. He is still in the mountaintop business. He never changes. But are we ready and willing to allow him to change us? That is the real question.
The big things of God come with discomfort, sacrifices, risks, and work. The mountaintop does not come with an escalator, elevator, or a moving sidewalk that they have like those airports. And being in proximity to the mountaintop or even being on the mountaintop doesn't change anyone. No more than having the license to make a Star Wars game magically make the game good. It doesn't. It is only when we are willing to take the risk of allowing that experience to consume us and to transform us. That is when we will change the way we see him, his word, and our responsibilities to the world around us.
The truth is that asking the Lord for an external event to change us internally, as we see with the Transfiguration, it doesn't work. It never has, and it never will. He changes us internally, so we handle the external events differently, both on the mountaintop as well as those painful walks down through the valley of the shadow of death. If we want something new and exciting from the Lord, we should be prepared for things to get a little messy, maybe a little weird, and definitely a little uncomfortable. But none of those things will change us unless we choose to let him do that work inside of us. The Lord has given us the license to act on his behalf every single day on this planet. We have the license to make those Star Wars games, but it's up to us each and every day to go to those new places that his Spirit pushes us internally, that allow us to do the work worthy of our calling externally. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm still kind of ready for some waffles.
Oh, yeah.